Right, so first things first with this, I need to repair this damaged canvas on the front edge here. I'll try and hold that back without destroying it too much. As you can see there, the holes in the front of the canvas, that's where it's worn through. So we need to stitch a new piece of canvas along here to cover those holes up, but to get access to it I need to release a bit here that's been sewn. So I'm just going to cut these bits of stitching, and then that will allow me access to the top of this spring edge, which is where I'm going to stitch a piece of canvas or fabric to. Fortunately, the rest of the canvas, looking at the job, is okay, so we can not get away with, but we can just repair this damaged piece. So I'll just get a piece of fabric to stitch along there, and then we can glue this back onto it, pull that over, and then we can look at addressing the issues with the felt that's on top, and then make the cover up, and hopefully everything's okay. So let's get a bit of canvas. Back in a second. So, like I said previously, we've got racks of remnants, so we're just going to use a piece of fabric. I'm going to blanket stitch along the top edge, fold it down here, blanket stitch here, and then staple it off. So let's just cut this roughly to size. Find a curved needle. Some twine. One curved needle. Oh, sorry, put my hammer. There you go. Curved needle. Anyway, curved needle, twine, string, nylon, twine. So, if you're not sure what a blanket stitch is, look it up on YouTube, okay? So, like I say, stitch it along this edge. I'll just put these in here to give you an idea of where we're going. We're going to stitch that along here and down these ends, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to staple it here as normal. I'll get on with that. I'll put the kettle on and I'll be back to you when this is front edge is sewn up. Okay, back soon. So there you have it. Bit of canvas stitched on. Blanket stitch on here. Hope you found it on YouTube. I'm sure somewhere you can find it. So I just need to glue this hair back on to this edge. over. I've been calling it hair. This obviously isn't hair. This is a coconut hair. So there we go. Try and glue this back on as close to it was originally as we can. You can see there's a lot of felt there. This is a lot of felt. Try and get it back in there. We've got to put more felt on it as of yet. And then I will put a layer of Lux Bond on it. So we can see here this has all been damaged by whatever. It's either something's been eaten. It was stored in a barn for a while, this chair, so it could very well have been rodents that have got at it, but I'm not entirely sure. So there you go. We've just got to patch it up. So we need to patch this bit of damage up here, and then I'll put a layer of Lux Bond over the top, and that'll help hold it all together once it's glued in. So let's find our felt. There you go. Here's the felt that we're going to use. Needle felt, lots of different names. Well, this is black felt. White felt tends to be softer, albeit over the years I've noticed this change in its makeup. This used to be a lot firmer a few years ago. It's a lot softer now than it used to be. Feeling for voids and adding the felt where the voids are. Try and we're not going to be able to get this as uniform as we would do with foam or stripping it out and rebuilding it its entirety. That's not what we've been asked to do. I'm just going to feel around, patting it with the back of my hand for voids and trying to fill the voids with a bit of felt. Right, let's get Lux Bond and see what happens. Right, I'm now feeling through the Lux Bond. That front edge feels pretty good. There's a bit of a lump here. Just pushing that into place. The rest of it feels pretty good. So I'm going to start by gluing this to the top edge, because the top edge is pretty much intact. You have to bear in mind, furniture originally would have just had very minimal padding in it, and they would have used what they would have had to hand, whether that's scrap fabrics or hay out of the field across the road, which you would have seen hay in one of my previous projects. So this may look a bit odd. Think, oh, why are you using that? Why aren't you using foam? Because it didn't have foam in it. That's why I'm not using foam. And the moment you put foam in it, you're detracting from the originality of the chair. This is my only concession to modern materials, is using this Lux Bond. It would have originally just have had felts in it, but this, using this Lux Bond, helps hold it all together still. So right, let's lay it on its back so I can do this front edge. Pull it over, get some tension in it. Bit of glue on that bottom edge. Same on the other side. Right. Trim off the Lux Bond at the bottom edge there. That's the slipper chair back in. A bit more glue. So there we have it. Right, that's held together. Let's staple the top edge off now. Trim that off here, or trim the Lux Bond off. Sorry, I can't presume that you can see what I'm doing. There you go, that's the Lux Bond off. So, that's it pretty much stuffed. The cover, as I showed you previously, has some ribs in it across here. They help create the shape on it and they give it some decorative detail. So I need to unpick the original top cover. I will lay it on here just to see how it fits still, because we've changed this. Everything's okay, then we can get on with sewing the top cover. It should go back together relatively quickly, this chair, at that point. So that's the fabric cut for the inside back. I've marked, it's going to be hard for you to see on this because of the pattern, but I'll explain it as best I can. I've marked the flutes in the centre of the back in the same position as they was done originally, and stitched a line through it, and there you can see the canvas on the back and the stitching on it. So I've now got to fill these flutes. So we're going to do that with a bit of the felt that's left over from the job before. The easiest way to have done this would have been to stitch a piece of foam to it. That would have given us a very similar effect. But like I said earlier, we want to try and keep this as original as possible, and there was no foam in it. So we're going to take the felt, tease it apart, and slot it in to the flutes, little bit at a time. Use my ruler, just push that down to the centre. I'm going to do half at a time, go in from the other side to do that, so to create a little lump of felt. It doesn't have to be, we don't want it to be too firm. You just want to create that little fluting effect. So let's just get on with that. Okay. Just keep going. feeling it with the palm of my hand, see if I can feel any lumps. We want it to feel consistent through there. So it's going to take me a little bit of time to do this. Patience, it's not going to happen in 5 minutes. So we'll get back to you when that's done. So that's the flute stuff. That one there in the middle could do with a little bit more, I think. So we're just using the ruler. We'll just stuff a little bit more in there. So, they now feel pretty uniform. That's what we want. So there you go. I don't know, let me see if it's there. That shows up quite well. So there you go. You can see the flute in there, effect on it. This is the top edge. So this has got to have a piping sewn on it. I need to cut and sew the border up, which is the side of the chair. Let me just spin you around, show you what I mean. So the side of the chair is this border. There's the front edge around the leg. So there you go. Hopefully you can see that when it doesn't fall on the floor. That needs to then be sewn to it, and then it's a relatively simple job of pulling it over there and attaching it. So I need to cut the border. Let's get that out of the way. Cut the border and then attach it to this, and that's where the flutes are, about there. The flutes do two things. They add decoration, but also allow the fabric to create this curve here. You can see there. So I need to cut them and get them attached. So I'll come back to you when we've got the borders cut, the piping sewn on, all attached to this cover. Okay. Right, so that's the inside back, or basically a whole chair other than the outside back and the bottom cloth, sewn up. Let's just move across a bit. You can see the flute in there in the back. We've got the sides on, so it fits quite nicely. We'll just spin you around and show you what it looks like at the side, and we see what we've got to do next. Right. The colours look fantastic, very vivid. Lovely fabric, statement piece of furniture when it's done, which shouldn't be too long now. We've got the fabric on. In principle, it looks like it's going to fit nicely. So we've got to make the cuts now. We've got to make a cut for this arm here and this part of the arm here to come through. We should be good to go then. I will put a little bit of Lux Bond over this wooden edge here, so it's nice and soft to touch. But unfortunately I can't do that whilst I'm holding the camera, so we'll put you up in your tripod and hopefully get these cuts made and the back, or the inside back, stapled off. Right, so there we have it. I've spun it round so hopefully you can see better. Just going to peel this fabric back here. So before I make these cuts, I'm just going to fold this back up. Need to do the same on the other side as well. Only really pulled it down that far just to see how it's going to fit. I can see it's going to fit okay, so just peel this back up. So I've got to make the cuts in the fabric, come down there, and the same with the back. Right, so I'm going to pull the fabric. I want to get this pulled in, this portion here. That brings the tension down here and the tension from the front. So I want to get that pull done first. I'll try and do it this way so you can see what's going on. I would normally lay this on its side at this point. There you go. So we're going to put some Lux Bond over here. Okay, and then the top as well. So, get a staple gun. Now I'm going to staple this as far in as I can from the edge, just in case I do have to release it. Gives me a bit more scope. So that's that one side done. Let's spin it around and do the other side. Same process again. bit more awkward because I'm trying to keep this on camera so you can see what I'm doing here. I'd normally, like I say, I would lay this on its side at this point, but we'll try and keep it in shot for you there. Right, so there you have that. So I've got to make the cuts down here and through here, and if you don't get them right first time, you're going to be in trouble. So let's try and move this out a bit so you can see. Let's try and make this cut here. So I'm going to cut along this fabric to release it to come around this arm. Let's start it. I will adjust the cuts when I've got all the cuts made. Don't want to cut too much, a little bit at a time. There you go. Let's do the same with the other side. There you go. So that one, and then the cut for the arm. Okay, right, so that's the start of the cuts around there. So I need to pull this off at the top and then at the bottom, and then I can pull the sides off, but I need to do that on both sides. So I'm going to do that on its side, unfortunately, because it is going to be too difficult for me to do it this way up. So we'll come back to you once I've got this pulled off and stapled on the sides. So there we have it. You can just about see it over my shoulder now. That's the inside back on it. We've got the outside back to go on it, and then the bottom cloth. So let's just spin you around so you can have a better look at this. There we go. Cuts are a little bit tricky along those arms, but I always knew there was going to be. You can see the fluting in the back, or the lumbar support, so to speak, and then the seat. So this side, this back here a bit again. So it's looking good. It's not the most even chair, but it is an antique, so it's been quite difficult with modern foams, fibres, etc. You'd probably get the finish a little bit better, but I'm happy with that. So I just need to get the outside back on it and the bottom on it. So let's get the camera put up in the stand and have a look at the outside back. So the outside back is relatively straightforward. I've already got that cut. We just need to centralise the pattern as we did on the inside back, and we'll use some back tacking strips that I have up there. I have a piece on here, I'm sure, that I can show you. You've seen us use this before, this style of metal back tacking strip. It's very simple to use, gives a nice finish more importantly. So let's crack on with that. I need to trim off the excess from the inside backs, just so I've got something clean. This could also create lumps in the outside back, which we won't want. So let me know what you think in the comments of this particular chair. I'll be interested to see what people think. I either love it or hate it in this particular fabric. This fabric's from Art of the Loom. We've used it on a few pieces now. Always gives an interesting result, different furniture. Whilst I was off camera, had a couple of customers in with different opinions on the fabric, so it's not to everybody's taste. There you go. That's what we mainly deal with here. If it was to everybody's taste, then people would be just buying their furniture from one of the big outlets, and everybody currently would have grey furniture. So fortunately they don't. I personally like the fabric. I like bright fabrics. Don't know if that's a symptom of been doing this for a very long time. Or what? Right. So, regardless of theoretically, I should be able to just go by the centre of the inside back fabric. I am going to check measure it to measure and mark the centre, because this chair is so ununiform. I can't take it for granted that the inside back fabric is spot on. Well, in this particular case, I could do it's only a couple of mil off centre, so that's fine. But it's always better to check, because otherwise it's very obvious when it's not been put central with patterns like this. I'll just mark the centre of the fabric. Can't see me, but you can hear me. Don't know if that's a plus, but anyway, I'm just marking the centre of the fabric and I'll draw a line through it so we know where we are. And done. Right. I also need to straighten that top edge as well, I think, because that will throw off our line. So I'll get T-square on that and go from the manufacturer's edge and square that off. Just draw a line along it, cut it anyway. So now we've got a nice square edge, we've got it marked anyway. So that's what we're going to work from. Cardboard back tacking strip, vulcanised cardboard, gives us a nice straight uniform edge. There it is. So I'm going to staple along close to this top edge, but this gives a nice straight edge when we fold the fabric back on itself. Check that all the staples along that top edge are covered before I staple it right along. There you go. Back tacking strip. Just about long enough to do what we need. So let's just put some Lux Bond Originally the chair didn't have anything on the outside back, didn't even have canvas, so this is a bit belt and braces. Incidentally, my dad's just popped in to see me and brought an interesting tool in for me that he'd found. Don't know if anybody else has seen one of these. It's a ratchet screwdriver. There you go. You take that end out, pop it in the other side, and you've got left and right. There you go. Anybody else seen these? Interesting. Distraction. Right. There we go. So I need to mark the centre of the bottom of the back to make sure that I'm pulling the fabric square. I've already marked the fabric, so I'm just going to give that a tug, staple here and staple closer to the edge. And then we can look at using a back tacking strip. Right, so this back tacking strip works when you fold it, the fabric back on itself. I hope that makes sense. There's lots of different ways of doing this. Initially, this would have been slip stitched, hand stitched, folded and hand stitched along that edge, which is fine, but it can be a time consuming process, and some fabrics don't lend themselves particularly well to being slip stitched, this being one of them because of the nature of the short velvet. You will see, or potentially could see, the stitching. This gives a nicer finish, and it's quicker. So just fold it back, and tap it in. If this was a long pile velvet, I'd be hesitant to use this method because of tapping it down like this would damage the pile. But with this particular printed velvet, it's not an issue. So that's one side done. So I'll just get the other side done and the bottom cloth on this and the action attached back to it, and you can have a look at the finished project, which shouldn't be too long now. Back shortly. So there you have it. It's done. Give the polish a wipe over, just to clean it up a little bit. We're not really polishing it, but there you can see, yeah, it's all done now. To the back. So there you have it. Let us know what you think of this fabric in the comments. It's certainly dividing people. This rocking chair is ready to go back to the customer. Let's give it a little rock. There you go. So this is ready to go back to the customer. We've got some dining chairs to be getting on with next. So as always, I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, they're not instructional, they're for entertainment. Everybody has a different way of doing things. I like to think that the end result we get is very satisfactory. Our customers seem to like our work, and I hope you enjoy the videos. We'll keep putting the content out there. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again. Bye bye.